So my name is Patrick, and I have nearly 10 years of work experience in the hospitality fine dining industry in the marketing and operations. Most recently I finished up my internship with Bayer Consumer Care, who is an OTC company in Shanghai, China. They hired me as their digital media strategy intern.
Very cool. So what were your apprehensions about working in China as a Canadian citizen working for a German firm in Shanghai?
Yeah, so there was a lot of apprehension going into this project, even though I was really excited. The first being, I've never worked in China in the private setting before. I've worked in the education part of things, but never in a corporation, never in over-the-counter industry, and also added on top of this was the whole Chinese culture and how that would be reflected in the job itself.
So what types of things did you find eye-opening when you actually started working there?
So there were a lot of things that were really eye-opening. One of them being, I thought that China was going to be very relationship-based and that people would not be valued for their skill set, but rather their seniority. And from what I understood at this foreign firm, that it was the total opposite.
Oh.
You know, you were there because of your skill set, and you were promoted based on that skill set for the most part. I also found really interesting the informal lines of communication. So coming from an entrepreneurial background where I was before in fine dining, and coming into the corporate setting, informal lines of communication was completely new to me, and how do you use that to communicate your idea? How to tell people, my project is important, can you please help me?
Okay.
And then the last thing that that was really eye-opening was how many hours everybody put into their job.
How so?
So the brand team, the marketing team where I was working on, these guys were working 10 to 12 to 14 hours a day. And they would come in at 8, and they would leave at 7, 7:30, and they would go at home and put in another 2 hours or something like that.
Wow.
And from what I've been told, regardless of Bayer Consumer Care or P&G or Nestle, any of those guys, you're going to be putting in some work.
Okay, Patrick, so what do you think was the either most negative or not as positive experience that you had there?
Right. So I think one of the interesting things about going into China as a foreign student, they don't have a mentorship program like we know it here in the Western culture. So when I got there, there was very little structure and very little mentorship. As a result, the director of marketing to whom I reported really didn't give me any kind of guidelines to work with. On the flip side, though, what she did do, which was fantastic, was she empowered me to do my project and really gave me full reign on what I wanted to do. And what that meant was, okay, Patrick, if you have a problem, feel free to reach out to anybody to solve that problem. So whether that was brand managers, marketing managers, or any of the partner agencies, the marketing agencies that the firm worked with, I could give anyone a phone call and set up a meeting. And I think I really benefited from that and ended up learning a lot more from way more people instead of relying on just the one manager.
It's very cool. So what do you think is important for students to understand if they are thinking about moving to China to gain a career there?
Right. So I think, there are 3 things that you can do here as well as should you be in China. One is you definitely need a language component. So not only is it helpful to have in the workplace and becoming more essential in the workplace, but in your social aspects, making friends, going to the supermarket and picking up your groceries, like you need that language to get by. And it also helps when you're trying to get hired that people know that you intend to learn the language so that it pushes you to stay on with that company. Second thing that people could be doing is a lot of networking. And when I was there, I know for myself, I was constantly trying to network with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the Australian Chamber of Commerce, the American Chamber of Commerce, all of those guys, of course, as well with our alumni network. So the idea is once you hit the ground, that's your opportunity to just kind of spread roots as far as you can. And that can already start here on campus from abroad and tapping into that network as well. Talking to your student friends and talking to the alumni. the last thing that people really need to think about is the mindset that you have as you go in to China. Gone are the days of the expat package and having a lofty, nice apartment for a full-time job. That doesn't happen. If you have the language component, if you have the cultural component and a hard skill set, you can look forward to getting a local package. And if you're lucky, it's going to be a local plus package. And the plus part means potentially an allowance for your housing or for transportation or something like that. And the other part with that mindset is that if you're going in as a local, you're going to be competing against people who already have the bilingual component. So a lot of our classmates here who already have Mandarin and the Chinese culture because they grew up in it, they're already able to communicate in English and have the frameworks that are being taught here in class. So then, as a competitor for those same jobs, what's your value add? How do you franchise that gap? And you really have to be clear on how you're going to communicate that. And these people, they're not just your classmates here, they're classmates from around the world. So it's a big marketplace, and you have to find a way to break in.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about your internship? Would you do it again?
Yeah, I would. It was a phenomenal learning experience because there were many firsts that I had to do, because it was the first time working in over-the-counter, working in a corporate setting, working in China. And the expectations were really high, and I managed to get through all of that, despite the 4-hour sleeps. Stuff got done. But if there was anything that I would do differently, though, is if I had the framework and the right mindset going in, that would have saved me a lot of time. If I knew that my manager was not going to be there for me, if I knew that she was going to empower me, then instead of spending 3 or 4 weeks trying to figure out what I was supposed to do, I would know from the get-go.
All right, well, thank you very much, Patrick.
Thanks, Nicole.